Captain Maya Rodriguez walked through the gleaming corridors of Nexus Prime Station with steady steps. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and her blue uniform bore the Earth Defense Force insignia. She had come here to negotiate mining, rights for humanity in the Outer Rim territories. It should have been a simple trade discussion, but Maya knew nothing was ever simple when dealing with the Galactic Consortium. The station buzzed with activity as dozens of alien species conducted business. Tall crystalline beings that sparkled like living diamonds moved past reptilian creatures with scales that shifted colors. Maya had seen many strange sights since humanity joined the galactic community 50 years ago, but she never got used to the way other species looked at humans. Their eyes held a mixture of amusement and contempt, as if they were watching children play with toys they did not understand. Dr. Lisa Morgan walked beside Maya carrying a datapad filled with trade proposals. Lisa had spent years studying alien cultures and languages. Her knowledge would be crucial in these negotiations. She wore simple civilian clothes and her blonde hair fell to her shoulders. Unlike Maya, she seemed relaxed despite the importance of their mission. They entered the main conference chamber where representatives from the major consortium powers waited. The room was enormous with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. Floating platforms held the various delegates, each positioned according to their species status in the galactic hierarchy. Humans occupied one of the lower platforms near the bottom. Lady Sylviana Moonwhisper sat on the highest platform surrounded by other elven nobles. Her silver hair flowed like liquid starlight, and her purple robes were woven with threads that seemed to contain captured moonbeams. She was over 3,000 years old and commanded the ethereal Elven Empire fleet. Her beauty was legendary, but so was her arrogance toward younger species. Beside her platform floated Zephyrus 7, whose crystalline body reflected the chamber lights in rainbow patterns. She represented the Crystal Collective and controlled much of the galaxy trade routes. Her voice rang like wind chimes when she spoke, and she treated most conversations as mathematical equations to be solved. Vexithera occupied another high platform. The reptilian warrior queen ruled the scaled dominion with iron claws. Her red scales gleamed like polished armor, and her yellow eyes never stopped scanning for threats. She had conquered 17 star systems through military might and respected only strength. Nisa Voidcaller hovered on a platform that seemed to absorb light around it. The psychic entity appeared as a shifting shadow with glowing purple eyes. She commanded the Dark Nebula Collective and could read minds across vast distances. Most species feared her mental powers. Maya stepped forward when the session began. She spoke clearly about humanity's desire to establish fair mining operations in unclaimed territories. Her proposal was reasonable and offered good terms for all parties involved. Humans would extract rare minerals needed for their growing colonies, while paying fair prices to consortium members who controlled nearby space. Lady Sylviana listened with growing impatience. When Maya finished her presentation, the elven lady stood gracefully. Her voice carried across the chamber like music, but her words cut like ice. "How amusing that these primitive creatures think they deserve equal treatment," she said. Other delegates began to laugh. "Humans have been in space for barely 50 years. We elves have sailed between stars for millennia. Your species still fights with crude chemical explosives while we harness the power of dying suns." Maya kept her expression neutral, but Lisa could see her hands tighten slightly. The insults continued as other delegates joined in. Zephyrus 7 calculated, aloud, that human technology was at least 2,000 years behind consortium standards. Vexithara compared humans to the primitive tribes she had conquered in her early campaigns. "Perhaps we should offer them a more suitable role," Lady Sylviana continued. "Humans could serve as laborers in our mining operations. They seem sturdy enough for physical work, and their short lifespans mean we would not need to support them for long." The chamber erupted in laughter. Even species that rarely showed emotion seemed amused by the suggestion. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks, but forced herself to remain calm. This was exactly the kind of treatment that made negotiations so difficult. Nisa Voidcaller mental voice echoed in everyone's minds. "Their thoughts are so simple," she said with amusement. "Like watching children try to understand adult conversations. They actually believe they belong here as equals." Lady Sylviana raised her hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, she delivered her ultimatum with the confidence of someone who had never been challenged. Humanity has 30 standard days to withdraw from all territories beyond your home system, she announced. Any colonies or outposts found after that time will receive educational correction. We will teach you proper respect for your betters through methods that even primitive minds can understand. The threat was clear. The consortium would use military force to drive humans back to Earth. Maya looked around the chamber and saw agreement on every alien face. They all believed humanity would submit rather than face their combined might. Dr. Lisa Morgan stepped forward. Her voice was calm and professional as she responded to the ultimatum. "Thank you for clarifying the consortium position," she said. "However, humanity must respectfully decline your generous offer. We will continue to defend our legitimate territories and interests." The silence that followed was broken by explosive laughter. Lady Sylviana actually wiped tears from her eyes, as if she had heard the funniest joke in centuries. "Defend," she repeated through her laughter. "With what army, little human? Your entire species has fewer ships than my personal escort fleet. Our magical technologies could turn your pathetic worlds to glass before your primitive sensors even detected our approach." Celestine Starweaver, another elven noble, nodded in agreement. "Their weapons cannot even penetrate our basic shields," she added. "It would be like insects trying to harm giants. Amusing, but ultimately pointless." Maya had heard enough insults for one day. She stepped forward, and her voice carried clearly through the chamber despite its quiet tone. "You have made a grave error in judgment," she said, looking directly at Lady Sylviana. "You know nothing about humanity, and you are about to learn why that is a problem. The aliens found this even funnier than before." Lady Sylviana practically giggled as she responded. "Oh, please, little human, tell us what terrible secrets your species possesses. Do you have magic weapons hidden in your primitive ships? Perhaps you have discovered how to make your crude missiles fly faster." Maya smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You will find out soon enough," she said simply. As the human delegation left the chamber, the alien laughter followed them. Lady Sylviana was already making plans for her grand fleet to teach these upstart humans a lesson they would never forget. She had no idea that in 30 days she would learn why humans had earned their place among the stars through methods the consortium had never imagined. Lady Sylviana stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as her magnificent armada assembled in the void. 200 elven vessels floated in perfect formation, each one a masterpiece of biomagical engineering. The ships looked more like living creatures than machines, with hulls that pulsed with inner light and weapons that channeled the power of captured starfire. Some vessels had been growing for centuries in the sacred groves of the elven homeworld, and their crews had sailed between stars since before human civilization began. The elven admiral wore ceremonial armor that gleamed like polished silver. Ancient runes covered every surface, and each one held spells of protection and victory. Her officers moved with the grace of dancers as they prepared for what they believed would be a simple demonstration of superior power. They had done this before with dozens of upstart species who thought they could challenge consortium authority. Celestine Starweaver joined her on the observation deck. The elven sorceress wore robes that seemed to contain swirling galaxies, and her staff topped with a crystal that held a miniature star. She had studied military strategy for over 2,000 years and commanded respect throughout the consortium fleet. "The other species have contributed their forces as promised," Celestine reported. "Vexithera brings 50 of her heaviest dreadnoughts armed with plasma cannons that can melt through planetary crusts. Zephyra 7 has provided 30 crystal ships capable of phasing through normal space-time. Nisa Voidcaller commands 20 mine ships that can drive enemy crews insane before the battle even begins." Lady Sylviana nodded with satisfaction. The combined fleet represented more firepower than most species had ever seen. Their weapons could destroy worlds, and their shields had never been breached by primitive technology. Victory was already assured. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Amy Davis crouched in the shadows of an asteroid field, watching the alien preparations through her ship sensors. The young communications officer had volunteered for this dangerous reconnaissance mission, despite orders to maintain safe distance. Her small stealth vessel was barely larger than a fighter, but packed with the most advanced sensors Earth could build. Amy transmitted encrypted reports back to Human Command, describing everything she observed. The alien fleet was impressive, but she noticed something important that her commanders needed to know. These ships moved like parade formations rather than combat units. Their positions prioritized appearance over tactical advantage, and their patrol patterns followed predictable routes. Commander Kate Sullivan received Amy reports at the hidden human staging area in the Titan Nebula. Kate had spent 20 years in Earth military and understood warfare better than most. She studied the alien fleet compositions with growing interest rather than fear. The enemy had overwhelming individual ship superiority, but they fought like aristocrats rather than soldiers. "Look at their formation patterns," Kate told her staff officers. "Every ship maintains perfect spacing for visual effect. They have never fought an enemy that did not surrender after seeing their pretty lights and hearing their threats. This is going to be educational for all of us." Dr. Lisa Morgan worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the Human Command ship, analyzing data collected over years of secret observation. She had studied every major consortium species, looking for weaknesses that human forces could exploit. Her findings were disturbing but also encouraging in unexpected ways. The elven magical technology required specific crystalline focuses that could be disrupted by electromagnetic interference. Their beautiful ships were powered by contained stellar fragments that became unstable if their magical bindings were damaged. Most importantly, the elves had never faced an enemy willing to use crude, destructive methods against their elegant vessels. The scaled warriors of Vexthara Empire relied on thermal regulation systems to maintain optimal body temperature during combat. Their plasma weapons were devastatingly powerful, but required significant cooling periods between shots. Their heavy armor was nearly impenetrable to energy weapons, but had never been tested against kinetic projectiles. The crystalline beings could phase through most attacks, but this ability required enormous energy expenditure. They were vulnerable during the brief moments when they solidified to fire their own weapons. Their crystal bodies could be shattered by precise sonic frequencies that human scientists had already calculated. The psychic entities posed the greatest threat with their ability to attack enemy minds directly. However, Lisa discovered they were vulnerable to electromagnetic radiation at specific wavelengths. Human ships could generate these frequencies using modified communication arrays. General Rebecca Stone reviewed these reports from her command center deep beneath the lunar surface. The Graying Woman had led Earth military forces for 15 years and understood the true scope of the challenge facing humanity. The alien fleet could indeed destroy human space if they fought a conventional battle, but Rebecca had no intention of fighting conventionally. Human industrial capacity had been growing exponentially since first contact with alien civilizations. While other species crafted individual ships over decades, human factories mass-produced functional vessels in months. The aliens created beautiful art that could fly between stars, but humans built practical tools designed for specific purposes. Rebecca activated secure communications to reveal humanity true preparations. Hidden shipyards throughout human space had been working constantly for 5 years. Mining operations in remote asteroids fields had extracted resources for thousands of vessels. Every human colony contributed to the war effort while maintaining the appearance of normal civilian activity. The alien species had made a critical error in their intelligence gathering. They observed human space through diplomatic channels and trade negotiations. They saw only what humans wanted them to see, while the real military preparations remained completely hidden. Maya Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her own vessel watching similar preparations from the human side. Her ship looked crude compared to elven masterpieces, but every system had been designed for maximum effectiveness rather than aesthetic appeal. Human vessels carried redundant systems and modular components that could be quickly replaced during battle. "The aliens think we are scrambling in panic," Maya told her crew. "They expect desperate messages begging for mercy or frantic attempts to evacuate our colonies. Instead, we have been preparing for this exact scenario since the day we met them." Lysandra Nightblade was one of the few alien commanders who felt something was wrong. The elven scout captain had survived longer than most of her peers by trusting her instincts rather than accepting easy assumptions. She reviewed human intelligence reports with growing unease. Human responses to the ultimatum were too calm and organized for a species facing extinction. Their diplomatic messages showed no signs of panic or desperation. Most disturbing, their military communications had gone completely silent, as if they had stopped using standard channels entirely. Something is not right, Lysandra reported to Lady Sylviana. These humans are not behaving like any species we have conquered before. They should be begging for mercy or attempting to flee, but instead they seem to be preparing for something. Lady Sylviana dismissed these concerns with aristocratic confidence. You worry too much, dear Lysandra. Humans are simply too primitive to understand the futility of resistance. When they see our glorious fleet, they will realize their mistake and surrender like all the others. The alien armada began its journey toward human space with great ceremony. Elven ships sang ancient war songs through space itself, while crystalline vessels created light displays that could be seen across star systems. The reptilian dreadnoughts moved in perfect attack formations, and the psychic ships spread waves of intimidation ahead of the fleet. None of them noticed the small human observation drones that had been tracking their movements since the moment they left consortium space. Amy Davis and her intelligence team recorded every ship-type weapon system and tactical formation for detailed analysis by human command. The aliens were about to learn that humans had spent 50 years in space not as tourists or traders, but as students of warfare preparing for the day when their survival would depend on fighting smarter rather than prettier than their enemies. The consortium armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human frontier territory, expecting to find desperate defenders or fleeing refugees. Instead, they discovered empty space, dotted with automated distress beacons broadcasting surrender. Messages on repeat. Lady Sylviana stood on her flagship bridge, studying the tactical displays with growing irritation. Where are they? She demanded. Human colonies should be here, but the planets appear abandoned. Are they hiding like cowards in their primitive bunkers? Celestine Starweaver consulted her magical sensors, which could detect life forms across vast distances. The settlements show no significant biological signatures, she reported. Either the humans have fled, or they are using some kind of concealment technology we have not encountered before. Vexathara's voice crackled over the communication system from her dreadnought. Cowardice is expected from such weak creatures, the reptilian commander said. We should proceed directly to their home system and end this pathetic display. Earth will burn as an example to other upstart species. Lady Sylviana agreed with this assessment. The human withdrawal proved their inferiority and justified everything the consortium had said about primitive species. She ordered the fleet to advance toward Earth at maximum speed to deliver the final lesson in galactic hierarchy. The armada moved in perfect formation through the outer system. Elven ships maintained their ceremonial positions, while alien vessels arranged themselves. According to traditional battle doctrine, they had used these same tactics for thousands of years against species that surrendered after seeing their overwhelming power. Amy Davis watched from her hidden observation post as the enemy fleet entered the carefully prepared kill zone. Her fingers hovered over the detonation controls, waiting for the exact moment when maximum ships would be caught in the trap. Years of planning and preparation came down to this single decisive action. All enemy vessels are now within the targeting area, she reported to Maya Rodriguez over encrypted channels. Recommend immediate activation of Operation Mousetrap. Maya smiled grimly as she gave the authorization. Execute the minefield, Amy. Let them learn what human engineering can accomplish when we put our minds to destruction. The space around the consortium fleet suddenly erupted in millions of explosive flashes. Human engineers had spent 3 years seeding the region with crude but effective mines using asteroid mining equipment to hide their activity. The devices were not elegant energy weapons or magical constructs, but simple nuclear explosives packed with metal fragments. Lady Sylviana's ship rocked violently as dozens of mines detonated against her shields. The elven energy barriers flared and sparked under the brutal assault. Around her, the beautiful formation dissolved into chaos as ships tried to avoid the continuing explosions while maintaining their magical protections. Impossible, Celestine gasped as her sensors reported the damage. There are millions of these primitive devices. How did they place so many without our knowledge? The answer was typically human in its brutal simplicity. While the aliens crafted individual masterpieces, humans mass-produced functional weapons. Mining ships had scattered the devices over years using cover of legitimate asteroid operations. Each mine cost almost nothing to build, but together they created the largest minefield in galactic history. Vexathara's dreadnought took a direct hit that penetrated her thermal armor. The reptilian commander felt her ship's systems overload as human. Nuclear fire burned through decks designed to withstand plasma cannons. Her crew scrambled to contain damage that should have been impossible for primitive weapons to inflict. Their crude explosives are overwhelming our defenses through sheer numbers, she reported with disbelief in her voice. We are taking casualties from weapons that should barely scratch our hulls. The crystalline ships tried to phase through the explosions, but found their energy reserves depleting rapidly. Zephyra 7 discovered that maintaining intangibility while surrounded by continuous detonations required more power than her vessels could generate. Several crystal ships were forced to solidify and take damage from the ongoing bombardment. Nysa Voidcaller attempted to use psychic attacks against the human forces, but found no mines to target. The mines were automated systems with no crew to effect. For the first time in centuries, the psychic entity felt helpless against an enemy that fought without exposing vulnerable consciousness. As the consortium fleet struggled with the minefield, human ships began to appear on their sensors. Maya Rodriguez led a force of vessels that looked crude and utilitarian compared to alien masterpieces. The human ships had angular hulls covered in weapon pods and sensor arrays, with no concern for aesthetic appeal. Unknown vessels are decloaking around us, Lysandra Nightblade reported from her scout ship. Their stealth technology appears to be stolen and modified from multiple consortium species. They have been studying us far longer than we realized. Human fleet attacked with tactics that horrified the alien commanders. Instead of elegant dueling between individual ships, humans fought in coordinated swarms. Multiple vessels would target single enemy ships while using kamikaze drones to absorb. Return fire! Their weapons were not magical or exotic, but brutally effective kinetic projectiles and electromagnetic pulses. Maya Rodriguez's ship fired a salvo of railgun rounds at an elven cruiser. The metal slugs moved at significant fractions of light speed and carried no energy signature for magical shields to deflect. They punched through the beautiful bio-magical hull like bullets through paper, leaving massive holes that vented atmosphere and crew into space. Commander Kate Sullivan coordinated the human attack from her command vessel. She had studied every alien species for weaknesses and deployed specific countermeasures against each enemy type. Sonic weapons targeted crystalline beings, while thermal bombs cooked reptilian crews, and electromagnetic scramblers disrupted psychic communications. Dr. Lisa Morgan broadcast a message across all consortium frequencies, speaking each species' language perfectly. Her words sent shockwaves through the alien ranks as she detailed their biological vulnerabilities and technological limitations with scientific precision. You have underestimated humanity because you judge by appearances rather than capabilities, Lisa said calmly. We have spent decades studying your species while you dismissed us as primitives. Every weakness you possess has been cataloged and countermeasures have been prepared. The revelation that humans had been systematically preparing for this conflict shattered alien confidence. They realized they were not fighting a desperate defense, but a carefully planned military operation. The primitive species they had mocked possessed intelligence networks and strategic planning that rivaled their own. Lady Sylviana watched her magnificent fleet being torn apart by human tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Elven ships designed to last millennia were being destroyed by enemies willing to sacrifice multiple vessels to eliminate single targets. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to gain. This is not how warfare is conducted, she protested over communications. There are rules and traditions that govern combat between civilized species. These barbarians are using forbidden tactics. Maya Rodriguez's voice responded directly to the Elven Admiral. You made the rules to benefit yourselves and ensure your continued dominance. We are not bound by your traditions, and we will use whatever methods achieve victory. Welcome to human warfare, Lady Sylviana. Celestine Starweaver felt her magical focus crystals cracking under electromagnetic assault from human jammers. Without her mystical abilities, her beautiful ship became just another target for human gunners. She watched ancient elven vessels burn around her and realized they were facing an enemy that treated war as science rather than art. The tide of battle had turned completely. Human forces herded the surviving consortium ships into tighter formations where their crude nuclear weapons could achieve maximum destruction. The aliens found themselves trapped in a killing field of their enemies, choosing with no escape route available. Lysandra Nightblade was among the first to understand the full scope of their defeat. The humans had not only prepared for this battle, but had planned it down to the smallest detail. Every alien movement had been anticipated and countered by an enemy that fought with cold, mathematical precision rather than hot emotional pride. Vexthara screamed orders across her damaged dreadnought as she watched half her fleet burning in space. The reptilian warrior queen had conquered 17 star systems through superior firepower, but nothing had prepared her for human tactics. She activated her most devastating weapons in desperate attempt to turn the battle. "Deploy the planet killers," she commanded her weapons officers. "If these primitive mammals want to play with real warriors, then they will learn what true destruction means. Target their home system and reduce their worlds to molten slag." Massive energy cannons emerged from hidden bays on the scaled Empire dreadnoughts. These weapons could crack planetary crusts and boil away atmospheres. No species had ever survived their deployment, and Vexthara expected the humans to immediately surrender when they saw such overwhelming force. Nisa Voidcaller joined the escalation by unleashing her full psychic might against human space. Waves of mental energy spread out from her dark ship, seeking to drive enemy crews insane with visions of terror and despair. The psychic assault had broken entire civilizations in the past, and she expected similar results from the primitive human minds. The consortium response came too late. Amy Davis had been monitoring their communications and anticipated the escalation. Her fingers flew over control panels as she activated humanity's secret weapon that would change the balance of power forever. "General Stone, this is Lieutenant Davis," she transmitted on secure channels. "The aliens are deploying weapons of mass destruction against civilian targets. Request immediate authorization for Operation Pandora." General Rebecca Stone sat in her command bunker beneath Luna, watching tactical displays that showed the true scope of human preparations. She had hoped to avoid revealing their full strength, but alien actions left no choice. Her voice was calm as she gave the authorization that would shock the galaxy. "Operation Pandora is authorized, Amy. Show them what happens when someone threatens human children." Across human space, hidden facilities came online for the first time. What the aliens had dismissed as mining colonies and research stations revealed their true nature as massive military production centers. Asteroid bases opened to disgorge fleets of warships, while planetary defense grids activated weapons that had been camouflaged as industrial equipment. The galaxy discovered that humanity had been preparing for total war since their first contact with alien civilizations. Every human colony contributed to the effort while maintaining perfect deception about their activities. Mining operations had actually been weapons factories, and research stations had developed new forms of destruction. Maya Rodriguez smiled coldly as she received reports of the massive reinforcements heading toward the battle zone. "Attention, consortium forces," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You wanted to see human military capabilities. Your wish is about to be granted in ways you never imagined." Wave after wave of human ships emerged from hyperspace around the alien fleet. These were not elegant vessels or beautiful works of art, but functional tools of war produced in vast quantities. For every consortium ship destroyed, 3 human vessels took its place, and more kept coming. Lady Sylviana stared at her tactical displays in horror as the numbers became clear. Humanity possessed industrial capacity that dwarfed the rest of the galaxy combined. While alien species crafted individual masterpieces over decades, humans mass-produced effective warships in months using automated factories and robotic assembly lines. "This is impossible," Celestine Starweaver whispered as she calculated the mathematics of what they faced. "No species could build so many ships without our knowledge. They would need resources and industrial infrastructure beyond anything we have seen." Dr. Lisa Morgan answered their confusion with another broadcast that revealed the scope of human deception. "You observed our space through diplomatic channels and trade negotiations. You saw civilian populations and peaceful colonies because that is what we wanted you to see. Our real military preparations remained completely hidden until now." The revelation struck alien commanders like physical blows. They realized they had been completely outmaneuvered by a species they considered primitive. Human intelligence gathering and strategic planning had operated on levels they never suspected, while their own arrogance blinded them to the truth. Commander Kate Sullivan pressed the human advantage with increasingly aggressive tactics. Her forces deployed weapons specifically designed to counter each alien species based on years of xenobiological research. The results were devastating and precisely targeted. Sonic cannons shattered crystalline beings into component fragments, while thermal weapons cooked reptilian crews alive inside their own armor. Electromagnetic scramblers severed psychic connections and left Nissa entities isolated and helpless. Kinetic projectiles punched through magical shields that had never failed before. The human weapons were not advanced or elegant, but they were effective and deployed in overwhelming numbers. Railguns fired metal slugs at relativistic speeds, while missile swarms saturated alien point defenses. Nuclear warheads detonated in patterns calculated to maximize damage to specific ship types. Zephyra 7 attempted to negotiate separate peace terms as her crystal collective faced systematic destruction. We propose immediate cessation of hostilities and return to previous territorial arrangements, she transmitted on diplomatic frequencies. The Crystal Collective recognizes human sovereignty over disputed regions. Maya Rodriguez rejected the offer without hesitation. You had your chance for peaceful resolution. You chose war instead of negotiation, and now you will face the consequences. Humanity does not accept partial surrender from enemies who threatened our children. The unified consortium began to fracture as individual species sought their own survival. Vexithara warriors started deserting rather than face human death squads, while elven nobles abandoned their posts to flee in personal escape pods. The ancient alliance crumbled under pressure they had never experienced. Lysandra Nightblade made the difficult decision to approach human forces under a flag of truce. The elven scout captain understood military realities better than her aristocratic commanders and knew continued resistance meant total annihilation. Her small ship transmitted surrender codes as it approached human lines. I request permission to speak with your commanding officer, she broadcast. I bring warnings about consequences that extend beyond this battle. Complete destruction of consortium. Forces will create power vacuums that could destabilize the entire galaxy. Maya Rodriguez agreed to the meeting despite protests from her officers. The human captain understood that victory required wisdom as well as strength. She received the elven commander aboard her flagship while maintaining full security precautions. Lysandra appeared tired and defeated as she stood in the human conference room. Her elegant armor was scorched, and her weapons had been surrendered to human marines. When she spoke, her voice carried genuine respect for the first time. You have won completely, she admitted. Human military capabilities exceed anything we imagined possible. However, I must warn you that destroying all consortium forces will leave empty space that hostile powers beyond our borders will seek to fill. Some threats exist that even your impressive strength may not be able to handle alone. The warning gave Maya pause as she considered implications beyond immediate victory. Destroying the consortium would eliminate current threats, but might create larger problems. Human intelligence had focused on known enemies rather than potential future dangers from unexplored regions. Dr. Lisa Morgan joined the discussion with analysis she had been developing during the battle. Complete annihilation serves no purpose. Beyond revenge, she said, humanity needs stable neighbors rather than empty space filled with unknown dangers. We should consider terms that ensure our security while maintaining galactic stability. General Rebecca Stone received these reports and made the decision that would define humanity's future role in the galaxy. Her voice carried across space to all human forces engaged in the systematic destruction of alien fleets. All units, this is General Stone. Prepare to implement Contingency Plan 7. We will accept conditional surrender from surviving consortium forces and establish new territorial arrangements under human oversight. The war is ending, but our responsibilities are just beginning. The Great Conference Chamber on Nexus Prime Station looked very different from the meeting where alien arrogance had started this war. Human Marines stood guard at every entrance, while Commander Kate Sullivan coordinated security sweeps that ensured no hidden weapons or surveillance devices could threaten the proceedings. The atmosphere was tense but no longer hostile as defeated alien leaders faced the reality of their new situation. Maya Rodriguez entered the chamber wearing the same simple blue uniform she had worn months earlier, but now her presence commanded immediate attention from every species representative. The insignia on her shoulders had changed to reflect her new rank as Galactic Admiral of Human Forces. Behind her walked Dr. Lisa Morgan, carrying documents that would reshape the political structure of known space. Lady Sylviana sat in a chair, rather than on her former floating platform. Her silver hair remained beautiful, but her purple robes were simple civilian clothes, rather than ceremonial regalia. The elven noble had spent weeks in human custody, learning hard lessons about the consequences of underestimating potential enemies. Her immortal arrogance had been replaced by wary respect for human capabilities. Lysandra Nightblade occupied a seat beside her former commander. The scout captain had proven valuable during surrender negotiations by providing honest assessments of consortium military capabilities and territorial holdings. Her practical approach to defeat had earned limited trust from human negotiators who needed accurate information to establish stable peace terms. Zephyrus 7 crystalline form reflected the chamber lights, but her previous rainbow patterns had dimmed to pale hues that indicated submission according to Crystal Collective protocols. The mathematical precision of human victory had impressed her species more than emotional appeals ever could. Crystal beings respected efficiency, and humans had demonstrated superior organizational methods. Vexthera presence was notable mainly for its absence. The reptilian warrior queen had chosen death in battle rather than surrender to species she considered inferior. Her empire now faced internal civil war as various clan leaders fought for control without central authority. Human forces maintained careful watch over scaled territories to prevent conflicts from spreading. Nisa Voidcaller attended the meeting through a holographic projection since her psychic nature made physical presence dangerous for other species. The dark entity had discovered that human minds possessed unexpected resistance to mental manipulation. Their chaotic thought patterns and emotional volatility made them difficult targets for traditional psychic warfare. General Rebecca Stone stood at the central podium addressing the assembled representatives. Her gray hair and lined face showed the strain of commanding humanity through its first galactic war. But her voice remained strong as she outlined the new political reality. "The old consortium is dissolved permanently," she announced. "The supremacist ideology that placed certain species above others has been proven both morally wrong and strategically foolish. All sentient beings will be treated as equals under the new galactic compact that human forces will enforce." Dr. Lisa Morgan stepped forward to explain the detailed terms that teams of human lawyers and xenobiologists had developed. The agreement was complex but fair to all parties willing to accept human oversight of galactic affairs. Species that cooperated would receive protection and trade benefits, while those that resisted faced economic isolation or military intervention. Former consortium territories will become protectorates under human administration, Lisa explained. Local governments will maintain internal autonomy, but external policies, including military actions and territorial expansion, must receive human approval. This system ensures stability while respecting cultural differences. Lady Sylviana raised her hand to speak. Her voice carried none of its former arrogance as she addressed practical concerns about the transition period. "Many of our worlds depend on trade routes that cross multiple star systems. How will commerce continue under this new arrangement?" Maya Rodriguez answered with the patient tone of someone explaining obvious facts to children. "Trade will continue, but under human regulation to ensure fair practices for all participants. The days of economic exploitation based on military superiority are permanently ended. Everyone benefits when commerce is conducted honestly." The economic implications were enormous. Human industrial capacity would dominate galactic markets, but regulated competition would prevent the total destruction of alien economies. Former consortium species would need to adapt their production methods to compete with human efficiency, but they would not face deliberate exclusion from profitable activities. Lysandra asked about military arrangements for former consortium forces. Many alien ships had survived the war, and their crews needed productive employment to prevent them from becoming pirates or mercenaries. The question touched on fundamental issues of trust and security in the post-war galaxy. Surviving military. "Vessels will be incorporated into the Human Galactic Defense Force under strict oversight," Kate Sullivan explained. "Alien crews who demonstrate loyalty to the new order will serve alongside human personnel on joint missions. Those who cannot accept integration will be pensioned off with honor, but without access to military equipment. The system would gradually blend former enemies into a unified command structure while maintaining human control over strategic decisions. Alien expertise in specialized warfare would benefit human forces while ensuring that no single species could challenge the new galactic hierarchy. Amy Davis had been promoted to Director of Galactic Intelligence and now oversaw monitoring systems that tracked potential threats throughout known space. Her network of human agents and cooperative aliens provided early warning about any groups attempting to rebuild supremacist organizations or challenge the peace settlement. We have identified several fringe groups among various species that reject the new order, Amy reported. However, they lack significant resources or popular support. Preventive measures will contain their activities without requiring major military operations. The meeting continued for hours as representatives worked through countless details of the transition process. Housing for refugees displaced by the war required coordination between multiple worlds. Economic support for damaged alien industries needed careful planning to prevent social collapse. Integration of different legal systems presented challenges that would take years to resolve completely. Dr. Lisa Morgan had spent the months since victory studying long-term implications of human dominance. Her analysis suggested that the galaxy would become more peaceful and prosperous under unified leadership, but only if humans remained committed to fair treatment of all species. The temptation to exploit their victory for purely human benefit would undermine everything they had achieved. 50. Years from now, historians will judge us by how we used our power, Lisa warned during a private meeting with human leaders. If we become the same kind of oppressors we defeated, then we will face the same fate as the old consortium. Our strength must serve justice rather than dominance. Maya Rodriguez agreed with this assessment as she planned patrol routes for the expanding human galactic defense force. Former alien strongholds had become human bases, but their crews included personnel from every cooperative species. The sight of elven mages working alongside human engineers had become common throughout the galaxy. Lady Sylviana found herself in the unexpected position of cultural advisor to human administrators trying to understand elven society. Her knowledge of ancient traditions helped prevent conflicts that could have destabilized the transition process. The work was humbling, but she discovered satisfaction in building rather than dominating. Years passed as the new order took shape. Children of former enemy species grew up learning human languages alongside their native tongues. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had been isolated by consortium policies. Scientific cooperation led to technological advances that benefited everyone rather than privileging certain species over others. Zephyra 7 successor crystalline entities had become close human allies in managing galactic commerce. Their mathematical precision complemented human organizational skills to create trading systems that were both efficient and fair. The partnership proved that former enemies could become valuable friends when mutual respect replaced supremacist attitudes. Amy Davis often reflected on the transformation as she reviewed intelligence reports from across human space. The galaxy had become unrecognizable from the place where alien arrogance had once seemed unchangeable. Peace and prosperity were spreading to regions that had known only conflict for millennia. The final ceremony, marking the 5th anniversary of human victory, took place in the same chamber where the war had begun. Representatives from every species gathered to celebrate their shared achievements and renew their commitment to the Galactic Compact. Maya Rodriguez delivered the keynote address to an audience that would have been impossible before the war. We proved that strength without wisdom leads to destruction, while wisdom without strength invites aggression, she said to the assembled delegates. Humanity chose to combine both qualities in service of justice, and the results speak for themselves. The galaxy is now what it always could have been, if arrogance had not blinded us to possibilities. Lady Sylviana applauded along with everyone else as she remembered her former certainty about elven superiority. The galaxy had taught them all that no species possessed a monopoly on intelligence or virtue. The greatest strength came from recognizing the value in diversity rather than trying to impose uniformity through force. Dr. Lisa Morgan concluded her historical analysis with words that would guide future generations. They chose the wrong species to challenge when they threatened humanity. but they also gave us the chance to prove that victory does not require becoming what we fought against. We struck back with strength, but we conquered with wisdom.